In part 1, I covered the benefits of installing a stiffer front sway bar on an SN95 Mustang autocross car, offered tips for choosing a stiffer front sway bar, and reviewed the Steeda 35mm front sway bar I use on my 2000 GT. But that's not the only stiffer front sway bar I've used on an SN95 Mustang. I've competed in over 40 autocross events with an Eibach 35mm front sway bar on my 2004 IRS-swapped V6. This video details the features of the Eibach 35mm front sway bar and provides my honest, autocross-tested review of its quality, performance, and durability. This is not a paid promotion. My Eibach 35mm front sway bar came in a kit for 1999 to 2004 Mustang Cobras, part number 3590.320, that included a 29mm adjustable rear sway bar. That kit has been discontinued because Eibach no longer manufactures the adjustable rear sway bar for 1999 to 2004 Cobras. I confirmed with Eibach that my front sway bar is the same as the one that comes in the 3518.310 anti-roll kit they sell for 1994 to 2004 Mustangs. This photo is a representation of what comes in the Eibach 3518.310 anti-roll kit: a 35mm front sway bar, polyurethane pivot bushings, end links with polyurethane bushings, and lube. I used the Eibach 35mm front sway bar with Steeda aluminum sway bar brackets, the supplied polyurethane pivot bushings, and prothane end links with polyurethane bushings. The Eibach 35mm front sway bar is made from tubular steel. The bends are different than the Steeda 35mm front sway bar, and it doesn't have collars to resist side-to-side movement of the sway bar during hard cornering. My Eibach front sway bar weighs 13.3 pounds. That's 2.2 pounds heavier than the Steeda 35mm front sway bar. My Eibach sway bar kit came with basic instructions for both sway bars. Installation instructions for the front sway bar are available on Eibach's website. Installing the Eibach front sway bar on my 2004 V6 took about 1.5 hours. Here's what I think of the Eibach 35mm front sway bar after over 150 autocross runs. Eibach is known for producing well-made suspension parts. This front sway bar is no exception. The bends are precise, and the red powder coat is smooth and shiny. My Eibach front sway bar came with quality polyurethane pivot bushings. Reviewing the performance of the Eibach 35mm front sway bar turned out to be a little tricky. I've driven a lot of autocross Mustangs, and I prefer the feel and performance of a stiffer than stock front sway bar. When I built my 2004 V6, the Eibach kit that included front and rear sway bars designed to work together seemed to be the best option. Because I was switching between 3 cars for a few seasons, and my V6 was parked for 2 seasons, I didn't autocross the car on a regular basis. But in 2023, I drove my V6 at 17 events. All of that seat time exposed something about the performance of the Eibach front sway bar that relates to the complicated fine-tuning aspect of sway bars. My V6 attacked the cones at a variety of venues. The fairgrounds, Coliseum parking lot, and the oval track infield are smaller sites with courses that often feature tight elements. The courses laid out on the oval track and the road course were generally much more open. At events on the road course, my V6 felt amazingly nimble and composed in the high-speed elements. I had complete confidence in the car during rapid changes of direction. At the smaller sites, I needed to soften my front struts from 2 to 1 to reduce understeer in tight elements. With that adjustment, the front end felt poised and present when I was throwing my V6 around on course. That wasn't a surprise. But at a few events on the oval track, I needed to soften my front struts from 2 to 1 to keep the car from understeering a little in some of the open elements and in the fast sweepers. That was a surprise. It wasn't a massive understeer issue, but it was enough to make me wonder about the stiffness of my Eibach front sway bar. I emailed Eibach to ask how much stiffer their 35mm front sway bar is than an OEM Ford 27mm front sway bar. The reply I received was, "Unfortunately, I do not have bar rates for comparison." That seems to me like information Eibach should have and should share with their customers. Based on my experience driving a lot of SN95 Mustangs and what I'm feeling behind the wheel of my V6, I think the Eibach 35mm front sway bar is stiffer than the Steeda 35mm front sway bar. When you're choosing a front sway bar to fine-tune your suspension, subtle differences between 35mm sway bars matter, especially for folks who don't have adjustability elsewhere in their suspension to compensate for those differences. After over 150 aggressive autocross runs full of twisty turns, the Eibach 35mm front sway bar on my 2004 V6 isn't bent or broken. It shows no signs of defects or decreased performance. These are the polyurethane pivot bushings that came with my Eibach front sway bar. They took a pounding, but they look barely used. It's common for the pivot bushings to wear off the powder coat, and a tire rub scuffed the coating. But everywhere else, the red powder coat is still in fantastic shape. I'm certain that I could use the Eibach front sway bar for many more autocross seasons. But even though I've been very pleased with the overall performance of the Eibach front sway bar, I'm going to switch to a Steeda front sway bar to see if that makes my V6 faster out on course. Every thousandth of a second matters at an autocross event. Further fine-tuning my suspension could help me find more speed. And in addition to features like the collars and billet steel end caps, the Steeda front sway bar weighs 2.2 pounds less than the Eibach front sway bar. Despite the fact that I'm taking the Eibach 35mm front sway bar off of my V6, I can't give it a bad review. It significantly reduces body roll, and it greatly improves steering feel. This car has been very competitive at my local events with the Eibach front sway bar. It's won local championships and performed better than most people expected. And because finding the right front sway bar is often a bit of an experiment, there's always the possibility that the Eibach sway bar will go back on this car at some point. Just because the Eibach 35mm front sway bar might not be the perfect option for my car, doesn't mean it's the wrong choice for your autocross Mustang. It's a quality part that offers very good performance and durability. Selecting a stiffer front sway bar for your autocross SN95 Mustang can be complicated. I hope the tips and reviews in this pair of videos help make that process easier.